We're going to talk about the Bush era taxes. That's a whole mouthful. And really, it was two. And they've now started reaching out to the rest of the community also. Welcome to another edition of Just Phil. I'm Phil Fleischman. I'm your host. And you know, I was reading through the newspaper the other day, and I'm reading about the Internal Revenue Service. To be honest with you, I was a little dismayed at the Internal Revenue Service. Now, everybody knows that I deal with the Internal Revenue Service every day. But Nancy Lerner gets up in front of Congress, says she didn't do anything, and then she takes the fifth. But what Nancy's not saying is this. The IRS targeted Tea Party organizations and did not allow them to become nonprofits. I have a little problem with this, okay? Now, first of all, the Internal Revenue Service is supposed to deal with everybody the exact same way. And it got me thinking about taxes. My buddy John here, John Steinberger, was around the corner. And I said, why don't you stop by and let's talk for a few minutes. So everybody, welcome John Steinberger to the show today.
Well, Phil, great to be here this morning.
John is a big advocate of the fair tax, which is before the state Senate right now, correct?
The State House Ways and Means Committee.
State House Ways and Means. I think everybody agrees that the income taxes that we have right now are just, well, they're very difficult.
That's right. They're not even-handed in many cases, and they slow down economic growth. So what we're talking about is a measure that will get our economy growing and make everybody more prosperous.
Well, the economy is definitely something that we always have to talk about and to think about. But we have to remember, now the Internal Revenue Service generates funds to operate this country. They're allowed to do that in only one of two prescribed manners: taxes and for tariffs, like import tariffs. So we have to talk about which way can we bring as much money as we can into the federal coffers and cost the taxpayer as little as possible. And the fair tax is one of those taxes that seems to offer a compromise that increases revenue to the government, correct?
That's correct.
Reduces taxes to the individuals.
Lowers the tax burden, but spreads it out. Everybody pays.
No more income tax return.
No more IRS.
No more IRS.
So that way any nonprofit wouldn't have anything to worry about. They wouldn't have an IRS to answer to.
Well, I'm sure they're still going to have someone to answer to.
The state revenue departments will be responsible for collecting the national sales tax.
Do me a favor. You know, we're sitting here, we're talking, and I know about the fair tax, but they may not.
All right. Well,
So give them just a moment and tell them a little bit about the fair tax.
Well, let's talk about the system that we have now, which Albert Einstein said was the most confusing thing on earth.
Well, listen, Albert Einstein also said that if you do something and it's wrong, and you do it again and it's wrong, what's the definition of crazy?
That would be insane. That's
Yes.
right. And what we're doing is wrong, doesn't work. Let's just explain what we've got. We've got a big layer of taxes, and that affects everybody either directly or indirectly. Most people are familiar with the personal income tax because
Right.
it comes out of their paycheck. And that top rate now went up to close to 40%.
Yep.
We also have the highest corporate income tax in the world. Well, that affects American corporations. It makes the price of our exports higher than they need to be and makes us uncompetitive in the global economy.
Right.
Okay, we also have the Social Security and Medicare payroll tax, which all employees and employers pay. It's 15.3%. And that's running deficits now, and will run deficits for at least the next 15 years. We're talking about trillions of dollars that are going to be paid out less than what we take in. So that doesn't work.
Now, of course, and what people probably don't know is that the FICA that's taken out of their paychecks. The employees, you have 7.65% of of your wages taken out for FICA, and then the employer has to match that.
And if you're self-employed, you pay the whole 15.3%.
Oh yes, not only do you pay 15.3%, but you also have to pay ordinary income tax.
That's right. So it's multiple layers. And
Yeah.
for those who are investors or who have any type of retirement fund or pension fund, there's taxes on capital gains and dividends, and they went up recently with
They did.
the new tax deal that they signed, I think January 1st of this year.
They did for
Yeah.
2013.
So that's an impact for investors, and like I said, anyone with an IRA, a 401k, or a pension fund. So that's a negative impact on the economy. People remember when Oprah Winfrey gave away the cars, and then the recipients got a letter from the IRS saying they owed a gift tax.
That's right.
That's one
right.
that most people don't know about. And the one that I think is the most un-American is the estate tax, also known as the death tax, where after a family member passes away, the federal government can swoop in and collect 55% of the total assets that a family has worked a lifetime to accumulate.
You know, also, if someone dies without a will,
Then the state
The state
controls
can-
all the assets.
that's right. That's right.
So very
They do.
important for people to get a will.
It is. A will is very important. But right now, I believe the threshold for taxability for an estate is $1 million.
It's, I think it was recently raised to $5 million, but a family farm, what they would do is assess the value of all the land. If
Oh,
they
sure.
sold it to a developer and clear cutting all the trees and selling it to the paper mill and their farmhouse, their machinery, and that could easily be over $5 million, even though the family doesn't have that type of cash asset.
Right.
So families lose their farms because of the estate tax.
Okay.
So it's
But the fair
horrible
tax
thing.
is really centered, and tell me if I'm wrong, okay, John? But it's centered on establishing a national or a state sales tax.
If we're talking about the Federal Fair Tax Act, it is a national sales tax, and
Okay.
all those taxes I just talked about would go away, and the IRS would go away, and America would be the best place to do business. People could invest their money in American securities and not pay an investment tax. People can build a plant here, and businesses will not be paying federal taxes here, which only get built into the cost of the good or service anyway.
Right.
So it'll make America...
Now, of course, that would add tax to services.
That's right. Services would charge their customers the national sales tax. So that would be an adjustment, but their cost of doing business would be less without paying an income tax.
Right.
And nothing that a business purchases for the production of their good or service would be taxed.
The thing that I really like about the fair tax is the rebate or prebate.
Prebate, also called the
Prebate,
family
yeah.
consumption allowance.
Tell them about that.
What it does is it covers your tax costs, your sales tax costs for expenses up to the poverty level. Now, everybody gets it, so it's not based on your income, but
Right.
it just says that whatever your basic needs are, you're going to get a prepayment that covers your sales taxes on those basic needs. So a family of four, for example, would have to spend $2,500 a month before paying any net sales tax, and that applies at the federal level and the state level. Let's just talk about the federal legislation and where it is now. I think
Okay.
since people are aware of the abuses of the IRS, there's been a lot of interest in eliminating the IRS, and the fair tax does that.
I don't think that we're ever going to eliminate IRS, John. I mean, someone's going to have to be around to collect the sales tax, and someone's going to have to be around to fund these operations for the government.
Well,
I don't think they'll ever go away.
the collection
but-
agency under the fair tax bill are the state revenue departments. So there is no federal IRS, and the audit system that we've come to fear won't be in effect anymore.
You know, it's funny. I took a look at the numbers for last year for audits, and I think that there were a total of, I want to say, 5,000 criminal investigations by the Criminal Investigation Department, and I think they had a conviction rate of like 86%.
And you have the presumption of guilt, unlike our system of law where the burden of proof's on the government. In the
You
case
have
of-
to hope that these guys are really just, they're doing it right, that they're being impartial. You have to hope that the system is working correctly. But when you have one agency that, in essence, writes the laws, enforces the laws, and then, has judgment on whether or not you broke that law, it might be a little bit too much for one agency.
Well, I think everybody's aware now that they're not even-handed in how they deal with these cases, whether it's processing non-profit tax-exempt status or doing audits on people who donated to the
I'd have to hope that Lois
Republican
Lerner,
nominee.
that Lois Lerner was acting by herself. You have to hope. You have to hope.
Now, it doesn't appear that that's the case. So anyway, the fair tax eliminates the IRS, so that's a good reason for it right there. And,
Right.
in addition to the economic consequences, but
Right.
the federal bill, Congressman Mark Sanford, who just got elected on May 7th, has pledged to co-sponsor that. That would make 66 co-sponsors in the House. It's interesting that neither of our United States senators are co-sponsors. Senator Tim Scott, when he was in the House, was a fair tax co-sponsor, but since he got appointed in January, he has not become a Senate co-sponsor. The Senate bill is S-122.
Right.
And I'd encourage everybody to contact Senator Scott's office and also Senator Graham, and you can reach any member of Congress at the Congressional Switchboard. It's 202-224-3121. And within
And you knew
several
that right
minutes.
off the top of your head, didn't you?
Absolutely. It's so easy to contact members of Congress. So tell them that you're concerned about the IRS, that you want a more pro-growth tax system, and ask both of our senators to sponsor the Fair Tax Act, Bill S-122.
Okay, so talk about it's in the House Ways and Means here in the state of South Carolina.
Right. I figured out years ago that the federal fair tax plan was going to be good for business and good for families, so why not do it at the state level? And I got Senator Larry Grooms to champion that cause, and so we actually hired an attorney to draft the legislation for us. And
Right.
It's been in the legislature now for 3 years, and this is the first chance that we're going to get a hearing. And economist Art Laffer has done a lot of research on state tax policy. He was Reagan's chief economic advisor, and he puts out a publication called Rich States, Poor States, and
Right.
it analyzes all 50 states and the effectiveness of their tax policy. And,
Right.
and Laffer says that the personal income tax is the most egregious tax a state can impose, and then he has studies to back it up. The 9 states that don't have a personal income tax have created 62% of the new jobs in the last decade. So not having an income tax is good for jobs, it's good for growth, it attracts businesses of all sizes. On our website, scfairtax.org, we've got some YouTube videos, and one of the ones that jumps out at me is a group of service providers, small business owners who've had to lay people off in recent years because the consumers don't have enough money for their services. So the big key to a strong economy is families with take-home pay. If we eliminate the state income tax, a family of 4 with $55,000 in taxable income will take home an extra $400-some a month. So with that, they can hire that contractor or go out to eat at the restaurants more often, or hire somebody to trim their trees, or get their air conditioning serviced, and all those things. That's how economies work. So when we have people with more disposable income, small businesses will benefit from that. They'll get a bigger customer base, and they'll be expanding and hiring instead of contracting like they are now. So that's the strongest economic impact of not having a state income tax. You'll have a stronger consumer with more money to spend, and the small businesses will thrive. We'll also get a lot of wealthy retirees here who buy homes and buy cars and donate to charities and volunteer their time. That would really make it a better place.
Well, we just gotta, keep. We have to keep the information flowing. As an accountant, I don't want to see the income taxes go away, but as a consumer, I could see the benefits to that. Let's talk about you for a few minutes, okay? You are a Navy veteran.
Right.
You served for, 11 years?
Right.
Then you were a teacher.
That's right. My wife is about to retire from teaching after 32 years.
That's a long
week
time.
and a half to go for her.
Oh, gosh.
But education is a very important issue to me, and I really want to see free choice in our education system so parents can shop around and find the best environment for their children, and the money should go to the family and not to the system. I think that'll make education more responsive. It'll put the competition factor into education, and kids will be better prepared for the employment world.
I mean, I agree. Education is the key to the future, because the children in school right now are going to be the people who are being the producers when you and I retire.
That's right. So we want an economic system that will give them the chance to prosper, and an education system that will give them the tools to do what they want to do and pursue their dreams.
And the fair tax, how does that help the schools?
Well, there are studies that show the stronger the economy, the better the educational performance. So there's a linkage there.
Okay.
It would bring in a lot of brain power when people see that South Carolina is an attractive place to operate their business. They're going to relocate here. You think about all the professional golfers who live in Florida. Well, we've got great golf courses here in South Carolina. If they had the same advantage of no income tax, a lot of them would come and live in Kiowa or Seabrook or Hilton Head, Myrtle Beach, and bring their families and their staffs with them. So
right.
It has a positive impact. The NASCAR crews would come to the York County and Lancaster County areas.
Okay.
And we just have a lot of entrepreneurs and a lot of achievers come to South Carolina and just upgrade our standard of living and our per capita income.
So what's next on the calendar for you?
Well, we're looking forward to presenting that to the House Ways and Means Committee. We want to make sure that all of our Charleston area legislators support this, and both parties. And so the purpose is get the information out. A lot of people.
That's what we're doing right now.
A lot of people say sales tax is regressive, but the fair tax is not because of the prebate. So once again, a family of four would have to spend $2,500 per month before paying any net sales tax. So it increases the spending power for people at all levels of income.
So do me a favor. Can you, in just a minute or so, explain the difference between the fair tax and the flat tax?
In South Carolina, we essentially have a flat income tax
We do it
because
7%.
7% for everybody with a full-time job.
Right.
In North Carolina, for example, to pay the top rate, you'd have to make $65,000.
Right.
So we essentially have a flat income tax. The fair tax eliminates the income tax completely, and so you pay taxes when you purchase new goods and services. If you buy a used car, you would not pay a sales tax.
Okay.
So that'll help our used car dealers in the area. If you're more likely to buy a new car with the fair tax because, once again, you have more take-home pay. You'll be able to afford a new car where a lot of people do not right now.
Let's say that I made, or let's say that my producer Spencer made $1 million next year,
I'm sure Spencer would be glad to know that.
but only spent $10,000.
Well, then he would have a lot more in the bank because you only get taxed on what you buy.
He'll only get taxed on what he buys.
That's right.
All right. Well, that's interesting.
And if he's frugal and buys a used car, for example, then he's not going to pay sales tax on that. And he won't pay any sales tax on anything that he purchases for his business.
All right. Well, listen, if you want more information on the fair tax, then you go to, what's the web address?
scfairtax.org.
scfairtax.org.
And we're also on Facebook at SC Fairtax.
On Facebook also. You on Twitter?
Not yet. We need to get on Twitter.
You're not on Twitter?
I am. I'm at Fairtax John on Twitter, so you can contact me at Fairtax John. Or you can call me at 709-7819, and I'd be glad to talk to you about the impact that fair tax will have on your family and your business.
Well, listen, if you see something, you hear something that you have a question on, call John. If it's something that you're interested in, that you want to push, call your state representatives, call your state senators.
Call Governor
congressmen.
Haley.
Call
Governor Haley's office number is 803-734-2100. And let her know. I'd like to see her take charge and be on national TV and talk about your great plan to eliminate the South Carolina income tax like the North Carolina governor is, Governor of Nebraska, Governor of Louisiana, Missouri, Kansas. So let's join that crowd and become a great place to do business for all businesses, large and small.
If you have nothing good to say to the governor, please don't call her.
Always be polite.
Always. I want to thank, we're filming here today at the studios of Roulette Records. I want to thank Roulette Records for having us come over. And we look forward to seeing you again next week. Let me ask you a question. Hey, maybe people out there don't know this, so let's just try to go over this fairly quickly. But tell me, how is a bill presented and passed in the state Senate?
Well, we'll start with the House of Representatives.
Start with the House of Representatives.
Hearing's going to be, this is a tax bill, so it goes through the Ways and Means Committee.
All right.
They formed up a 5-member subcommittee that's going to hear it first, and that includes Representative Leon Stavronakis from Charleston County, and we'd certainly encourage people who are represented by Mr. Stavronakis to talk to him and let him know that you support the fair tax. And by the way, you can contact any member of the House at first name, last name at schouse.gov. So you can write Leon Stavronakis at schouse.gov and let them know where you stand.
Right.
So that's the first process, going through the Ways and Means subcommittee.
And be nice.
And always be polite. And then after it's passed favorably, if 3 of the 5 members say they want to rule on it favorably, it goes to the entire Ways and Means Committee.
Okay.
And Charleston County Representative Chip Limehouse is on the full House Ways and Means Committee. He's one of our co-sponsors, so we appreciate Mr. Limehouse for being a fair tax co-sponsor. At that point, it would go through the entire House of Representatives. So what we're looking at with this session coming to an end right now is it won't get a vote in the entire Ways and Means Committee and the entire House until January. It basically resets and starts over when they reconvene. The legislature will adjourn sometime in June.
Right.
So anyway, that's the House process. In the Senate, they have an identical bill. The lead sponsor in the Senate is Senator Larry Grooms from Berkeley County, and it has to go through the Senate Finance Committee. So they're going to go through the same procedure in the Senate. You've got a subcommittee hearing, then the full Senate Finance Committee, and then the full Senate.
Right.
The bills are identical right now. If it remains that way, if there aren't any amendments, then it'll automatically go to the governor for
Let's talk about amendments for a moment. Now, I do something that probably most people don't do, and I don't know why I do it, but periodically I will go onto the website for U.S. Congress and take a look at the bills that are being presented. And I always like to look at the amendments, because the amendments are always just from nowhere.
Mm-hmm. That sometimes have nothing to do with the primary legislation.
So what happens if they put some amendments on there that's just pork? You know, just superfluous stuff. So just stuff that doesn't even relate to the bill.
One of the beauties of the fair tax is that all categories are treated the same. So that we'd have a 6% state sales tax applied to all new goods and services. So something that we can't accept are amendments that have exemption categories. Right now we actually exempt more revenue from sales tax than we collect. 2010 advisory board found out that year we exempted $2.7 billion in revenue and collected $2.5 billion. So we need to keep the base broad by keeping exemptions out, except for used goods and of course business purchases, and that keeps the rate low. As soon as you start allowing the exemptions, then the rate goes up. something I didn't mention is that when you apply the fair tax base to local option sales tax, which in Charleston County is 2.5%,
Right.
the county councils can actually lower the rate because they're going to collect the same amount of revenue with a lower rate. So the actual sales tax at the point of purchase would go down using the fair tax. So that's another attractive point. But
Hey,
we
I
have
got-
to make sure that the amendments don't take away from the intent of the fair tax, which is a broad base in which all categories are treated equally.
30 seconds, yes or no. Federal sales tax on consumer products purchased online.
Yes, because once again, we're broadening the base. It's brick and mortar and online sales will be treated the same, and that allows the rate to stay low.
What about the exception that, and of course, I've read the law, like I have nothing to do with my time, but there's an exception that the federal sales tax on consumer products that are bought online, the sellers are exempt if they did not sell $1 million last year.
Okay, let me couch this. I don't support the legislation in the Senate for internet sales tax now. I don't support that. Under the fair tax, then I would, because once again, that includes the broader base that
Right.
that keeps the rates low. So I wouldn't want to see it imposed with our current tax system, but with the fair tax, everybody's going to be treated the same, whether you're brick and mortar and own a small business here, or
Right.
you own Amazon.com. You're treated the same.
Okay, and before we finish up today, Gamecocks or Tigers?
Gamecocks, definitely.
Gamecocks.
Hopefully we'll go back to the College World Series in Omaha and make the finals for the 4th year in a row. And next year, we're less than 100 days away from the kickoff, where we play the North Carolina Tar Heels, the first game of the year. And this is
Find out who the real Carolina is?
That's right. We'll establish that. And I think this is the most talented South Carolina football team ever. And
First word that comes to your
they just
mind.
loop it and show that play again and again and again. And
Unbelievable. Well, listen, everybody. That's it for the show today. Enjoyed having you, John. It's always good to see you.
ready for another cup of coffee.
Ready for another cup of coffee. Absolutely. Listen, everybody, have a great day. Enjoy your week, and I will see you again next week at the same time. Take care, everybody.
This program is produced in conjunction with Just Phil Educational Television Foundation. For more information on this episode, events, and seminars, or to make a donation, please visit us at www.jpetf.org or call 843-224-6875.
It's a little intimidating. We're going to talk about the Bush era tax. That's a whole mouthful. And really, it was two